NCBA's work is critical to the long-term success of the beef industry. Joining me now to talk more about these efforts is NCBA CEO Colin Woodall. And Colin, I know the Beef Promotion Operating Committee met last month to set budgets along with priorities for the coming year. Give us an update, if you will, on the outcome of that meeting and why it's so important for all beef producers.
Well, the decisions by the Beef Promotion Operating Committee are so important because it determines how checkoff dollars are going to be used for the upcoming year. There's a lot of misinformation out there about the checkoff, and a lot of people think that NCBA is the checkoff, but that's not the case. We are a contractor. In fact, we're one of several contractors to the checkoff. And each year we have to go in front of the BPOC, which is made up of 10 cattle producers representing the Cattlemen's Beef Board and 10 cattle producers representing the Federation of State Beef Councils. And they may or may not be NCBA members, but all of us that are contractors go in front of the BPOC and we pitch them the ideas for different programs, promotions, and research ideas that we're going to do for the upcoming year. And if they like what we have to pitch, they're going to fund us. And if they don't, then they won't, or they'll cut us. In fact, NCBA, we took a cut this year, but regardless, we're going to be moving forward with our research work, the work that we do on culinary development, and also all the promotion work we do via the Beef It's What's for Dinner campaigns.
Well explained. Switching to the policy side now, cattle pricing is still a concern for a lot of folks out there. Tell us about the latest efforts by the Cattle Marketing Working Group.
As part of NCBA's summer business meeting back in July, we had a 6-hour live cattle marketing committee meeting where we talked about everything that was going on within the cattle markets and how we can be more proactive in trying to protect the interests of cattle producers. So we put in place a subgroup that has been made up of 7 cattle producers that are a part of the live cattle marketing committee or NCBA members to come up with an idea of how we can incentivize more cash trade in order to help with price discovery. That group has been working and they set a deadline of October 1st to get a proposal together. They were able to meet that deadline. And in fact, they've been able to roll it out to the bigger cattle markets working group. So we are in the process of trying to take that program and implement it and also roll it out to all of our members so they know exactly what it is we're going to be pushing for. But we feel pretty good about it. We were able to not only reach the deadline, but also do it in consensus. And more importantly, what we were able to achieve was at the direction of NCBA's members. So it shows once again that NCBA truly is a grassroots organization where it's the members that run the show, not us as staff and not the packers.
Absolutely. You know, during this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, all of us in agriculture, and more specifically the U.S. beef cattle industry, we've learned a lot of things. What about efforts to increase U.S. beef packing capacity? Any opportunities there? Well,
you're right, Russell. We did learn a lot of valuable lessons, knowing one is that we have to increase our overall packing capacity. And one of the ways that we can do that is get some help from the federal government. So we have worked to help get introduced several pieces of legislation on Capitol Hill that would help smaller packers in order to grow their opportunities and also to incentivize new packers to come online. One of those is the DIRECT Act, which would allow smaller mom and pop type of packing plants to be able to engage in electronic commerce and to take state inspected product and be able to ship it across state lines. We think that would give a lot of these smaller plants more opportunities to be able to generate revenue and to grow. Also working with a piece of legislation called the Ramp Up Act. What the Ramp Up Act do, it would actually provide some government funding to allow smaller plants that just don't have the funds to become federally inspected plants to be able to reach that goal. Both of those we believe will go a long way in helping increase our overall packing capacity. And they are part of a bigger piece of legislation that was just rolled out called the Price Act that would not only do both of those particular pieces, but also add some additional financing options to help the construction of new, smaller plants.
Hey, Colin, your DC team is working every single day on issues just like these. What are some of the wins that they've had here in recent weeks?
Of course, one of the biggest wins is the role that we played in helping Congress pass a continuing resolution that is going to keep the government funded through December the 11th. That's extremely important because the last thing we wanted to see was the government shutting down, especially right before this election. And as part of that, it included an extension of mandatory price reporting, which is such an important part of the overall transparency and price discovery discussion that we were talking about earlier, but also to make sure that we take a lot of the wins that we had on things such as a livestock exemption from hours of service in order to help us run longer and get cattle to their next phase. That extension was also a part of this continuing resolution. So some big wins for us here at the end of the year before Congress really packed up and went home to focus on the last few days before the election.
And before we let you go today, Colin, let's not forget CFAP, those coronavirus food assistant payments through USDA. What do cattlemen and cattlewomen need to know on this issue?
Yeah, cattle producers need to know that if you're interested in getting these funds, you need to apply now. Go online, go to USDA.gov. You will find all the information on how to make your application. This is something that NCBA worked very hard on last spring as part of the CARES Act that was passed by Congress to secure this funding that USDA then utilized to develop the CFAP program. In fact, Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue gave NCBA credit for securing those dollars, and those are dollars that are being used not only for cattle producers, but for all commodities. So it's important that if you're interested in this program, go get signed up because we do have a deadline coming up at the end of October for the second round of payments.
Colin, as we wrap things up, what message do you have for cattle producing families nationwide as we head toward November 3rd and a big election?
Vote. It's your right. Execute that right. It's not an option. You need to show up. But this is an interesting year. And so it's not going to be as easy as it has in the past to just show up on an election day. So do your homework because every state's doing it a little bit differently. Find out what the voting rules are going to be in your local jurisdiction. Find out if you can vote in person on November 3rd. And if not, make sure that you're filing the paperwork to either vote early or vote absentee. The big key is do your homework early. Don't just show up on November 3rd and be surprised if for some reason you can't vote because of some of the changes that have been made due to COVID. But vote. November 3rd is the day.
All right. Very well said. Colin, as always, we appreciate you joining us here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen.